Oh, goody.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Zombies here again. And today we're back with another Marvel Snap video. So today we're going over the decks I used to hit Day 1 Infinite in the new X-Men season. The new cards have been pretty good, particularly Surge. This card landed, I think, even higher than I expected it to, and I expected it to be pretty damn good. But I think it's going to be the best card of the season by a pretty wide margin, with Esme as a close second. So we're going to look at the decks I used to wrap up the climb, and they pretty much all feature Surge. And yeah, I think if you're on the fence about this card, if you're getting any card this season, this is the one I'd recommend. There's just so much application in doing strong things. In the deck we have here, which I used at the start of the climb, Sarah Monkey. Surge gives you some really big high roll potential in being able to get down a turn for Sarah or get down a free Kitty Pryde. The big reason why Surge is good is because you do not need a lot of procs of her effect for it to be good. If you get 1 to 2 Surge procs, it is often justified being your 2-drop play, if not being significantly better than a lot of other options in the 2-drop slot. There is a weird interaction here, though, with Mysterio. Since Mysterio isn't viewed as the same card, it's creating these clones. If you have a Surge effect on Mysterio, he still gets, the cost reduction and the extra power, and the clones get the power, but it will not trigger Surge and go again, because Surge doesn't view that as the same card. So that's an interaction to be mindful of. I've always had a soft spot for the Sarah Monkey deck. It's a deck I liked playing for a long time, haven't played it in quite some time, and it did well enough. I don't think it's the strongest out of the decks here, but the other 2 decks feature Esme, so I wanted to include it as well because it did work fairly well, and it gives people an option for those who don't have the season pass. But yeah, the game plan's pretty simple. You just want to play out your early scalers, Sam Wilson, Angela, Surge. I experimented with a few different things in terms of like, hey, I have these different 2-drops on 2, which should I play first? Most of the time, if you have Surge, you play Surge. Playing Surge on 2, for me, has often been better than playing Sam or Angela. The card is just very, very good. We have Bishop to scale off of playing Kitty Pryde over and over, getting those Mysterio procs, and Mysterio going with the Hip Monkey for the final turn. Big points. Mobius is a very meta-relevant card right now. A lot of people playing Esme decks, Mr. Negative, various cost reduction things. Thanos is super popular. So Mobius is a pretty big catch-all. Red Guardian fills a similar role, which gives us a little bit of tech that can also just be a good tempo play. Elsa has good synergy with buffing up the Kitty. Gwen is good with Mysterio and just good for stats. And then Sarah to reduce the cost of our cards so we can spam out a bunch of them on the final turn. So if you missed the old days of Sarah Monkey, might be worth giving a shot with Surge now. It definitely felt more viable than it used to. Next up is Surfer, and Surfer really impressed me. Initially, this was just going to be an Esme list, but I decided to try Surge in it as well, and Surge was quite good. The biggest impact Surge has here is you don't even necessarily need the multiple procs. Getting 1 proc in the Surfer deck can be very relevant because it allows you to play a 3-drop alongside a Surge 3-drop on turn 5 if you're not going for Sarah. Now, there are some high rolls here, like you can Surge into turn 3 Galacta or turn 4 Sarah. Those are quite good too. There's also a weird interaction with Surge and Makari right now. I don't think it's intended, but it hasn't been confirmed. If your Surge hits Makari, when Makari slams itself down onto the field, it triggers the Surge and Surge goes again. That doesn't seem like it should be how it works, given the wording on these cards, because Makari normally doesn't trigger play effects. So I'm guessing that's a bug, but that is how it works right now, and it makes Makari go from being anti-synergistic with Surge to actually being a positive synergy, so that's pretty big. We're running Sam as our other 2-drop scaler, mainly because he's just pretty good. He helps you get Prio. He gets pretty big for a 2-drop, and he pairs nicely with Captain Carter, so you don't always have to overcommit to get value out of the Carter lane. Other than that, It's a pretty generic Surfer list. I did have Rocket and Groot in at first, but swapped it out for Mobius because I kept seeing a lot of negative and cost reduction stuff. Esme is not required to play this deck. I did like her in it quite a lot, but I do think Surfer is one of those decks that is just very strong and has a lot of good substitutions in the 3-drop slot, so you could experiment with a lot of other things. Some that come to mind are like Copycat, Rocket and Groot, just whatever 3-drop is your preference can probably work in there fine. I did like Esme though here. Getting a lot of these cards out of the deck is really good for redundancy, like getting an extra copy of Surfer, getting a 3/4 Brood, a 3/4 Carter, and it's especially helpful when you don't know if you're going to actually get your Surfer that game or get that Juggernaut you need to win the game on the final turn. So I really like that for redundancy. Cool with Makari too, because you can generate Makari and then Makari will play itself, so it's neat. Or 3-cost Sarah, also not bad either. So I really like this deck. I think it used both Surge and Esme quite well, and it felt like a pretty big upgrade compared to the Surfer lists I was playing before these cards came out. And then last but not least, we have a Agent Venom Esme Darkhawk deck. So one of the very apparent synergies of Esme was just putting in some high value targets to hit offer that are really busted when they are 3/4s. And some of the first ones that come to mind here are Iron Man, Darkhawk, and Gore. I saw Tucker had a really successful climb with this on day 1 as well. I made one change from his version. He had Nico over Hood. I decided to use Hood instead, and Hood can be a little clunky sometimes, but I think the times it is good outweigh the times it has been bad for me. But that is kind of the flex spot. Sometimes it is a little weird not having the Nico in to give you that chance to destroy the Hood, but between Bast changing your hand and Agent Venom changing your deck, we have enough ways to mitigate the downside of that -3 in order to get a demon. The Surge procs are also good here because it gives us another way of getting something like Iron Man, Darkhawk, or Gore out early, and then that makes it easier for us to copy them with Mystique, which is pretty good. Cosmo is a must for protection with this deck. There is so much Tech Thanos going around right now. You often cannot feel very safe just jamming down a naked Darkhawk or Iron Man or Gore without a way to follow up and protect it. Cassandra Nova, also a good shout here to help a bit against Thanos and the occasional rogue Arsham. Had some people ask, is Darkhawk really worth it with only Korg as the main way of pumping him up? And I think it is mainly because Thanos is just so popular. Thanos is like 20-25% of the metagame. Maybe it's slightly less right now because people are trying out the new cards, but he's a dominant force in the metagame and one I do not expect to go away anytime soon. So that gives Darkhawk a bit of a boost. And then again, you also have the high rolls of getting to play a 4-mana Darkhawk with Surge or a 3-mana copy with Esme has made it worth running. You could experiment with something like Claw in that spot if you aren't really a fan of the Darkhawk, and then you could swap in Nico for Korg if you want to go in a slightly different direction. But personally, the Hawk did not let me down. Ended up being pretty solid overall. And this deck lets you do some pretty crazy things with Gore. Getting a 3/4 Gore is just disgusting. I had one game where I got to do a 5-mana Gore into a 3-mana Gore and then copy it with Mystique. This deck has some truly absurd power output when it high rolls. And it happened more often than I expected it to. So Esme actually ended up being a bit better than I thought she would in general. I thought this card would be playable, and she is playable. I think she's going to be in more specific decks. She's not a generic good card. It's going to go in every deck. She does warrant building around it to get the maximum value out of the effect, like we did in this deck and in Surfer. But in the decks that can afford to do that, I think you do get quite a lot of value out of it. So those are the decks that worked for me. I think Surfer and this deck with Gore, Darkhawk, Esme stuff, those are my two favorites. I think they were a bit better than the Monkey decks. People are trying a lot of different stuff right now, though, with the new cards. Ladder's a bit in flux, so it'll take some time to see where things settle. But if you're looking for some decks that work out on day one, these are the ones that worked rather well for me. You could also just play Thanos. I'm not going to hard endorse it, but the hot location today, Panopticon, favors Thanos, and I think Thanos is one of the best decks in the game, and probably will remain that until the next OTA, which currently isn't slated until, I think, like the end of the month. So that's something you could do too, but I'm not putting it in the video because it doesn't really do anything new other than maybe running Surge, and I don't want to promote more of it because we already have enough of it. But yeah, those are the decks. I'll have links in the description below if you want a copy to import them into the game for yourself. Let me know how you've been liking the new cards, how the climb's been going. I'd love to hear it. But that's going to wrap it up for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.